Picture a quiet night in rural Pike County, Ohio, on April 21, 2016. The sky's a deep, inky black. No moon, just the eerie whistle of wind cutting through brittle cornfields. Tucked away in this sleepy little corner of the world, the Roden family is settling into bed inside their modest mobile homes. There's Dana Roden, 37, a tough single mom, sharing her space with her two oldest kids, Hannah, 19, and Chris Jr., 16. A short walk away is her brother Christopher Sr., 40, living with his son Frankie, 20, and a handful of other relatives. They're a close crew, living near each other, working the land, keeping each other going. But when the sun creeps up the next morning, it doesn't bring a peaceful dawn. Instead, it lights up a nightmare so gruesome it'll echo across America for years. The Rodens aren't the flashy type. They're regular folks, hardworking, private, rooted in this tight-knit community. Dana's a fighter, a woman who once clocked hours at a local factory before pouring everything into her family. She's crazy about her kids, especially Hannah, who just gave birth to a little girl a few days ago. Christopher Sr. is the quieter one, always tinkering with cars or tending to his fighting roosters, a hobby that's pretty common out here. Frankie's the young spark, full of life, rounding out a family of 8 spread across 4 homes, all within a few hundred yards of each other. They don't have much money, but they've got land, they've got family, and they've got each other. Who'd ever think that'd be the spark for a night straight out of a horror movie? That next morning, April 22nd, everything explodes. Bobby Joe Manley, a cousin, rolls up to Christopher Sr.'s place to grab something. She steps inside, calls his name, no answer. The silence feels thick, suffocating. Then she nudges open the bedroom door and lets out a scream that rips through the countryside. There's Christopher Sr., sprawled on his bed, blood pooling from bullet holes in his head. Next to him is Frankie, frozen, eyes wide in a last gasp of terror. Bobby Joe stumbles out, dialing 911, not knowing she's only scratched the surface. Over the next few hours, they uncover 6 more bodies. Dana, Hannah, Chris Jr., and the rest, all gunned down in their beds overnight. 8 lives snuffed out in a brutal, silent slaughter. Cops swarm the scene, and what they find chills even the toughest among them. No busted locks, no strange footprints, just bullets buried in each victim's skull, fired up close, like the killer knew every nook of these homes. In Dana's place, Hannah's lying dead beside her newborn. But here's the kicker. The baby's alive, crying in the chaos. Someone spared that tiny life. But why? They cordon off the area, but word spreads fast. Pike County, where folks don't even lock their doors, drowns in fear and questions. Right away, everyone's asking, who did this? The Rodens don't seem like they'd have enemies. They keep their heads down, steering clear of gangs or big-time trouble. But as the police poke around, weird stuff starts popping up. In Christopher Sr.'s house, there's a rooster coop not just for fun, but maybe tied to some shady betting. In Dana's, a small safe's cracked open, empty, with no clue what was inside. Then a neighbor mentions overhearing Dana on the phone a few weeks back, yelling about land and kids. Is that the first thread to pull? The Rodens who weren't there that night huddle together, wrecked and reeling. They're not buying that this was some random hit. Somebody knew us. A cousin tells the cops, voice shaking. Somebody knew how to get in without us hearing. The police start wondering, was it an outsider or someone from inside the family? A relative with a twisted reason? Land trouble? A custody fight? Or some buried secret the Rodens never saw coming? As night falls again over Pike County, the investigation kicks into gear, and the first guesses point to something bone-chilling. Whoever did this didn't just know them. They knew how they lived, breathed, slept. When daylight hits Pike County, it doesn't chase away the darkness hanging over the Roden family. Cops stand among the mobile homes, quiet now like tombs, trying to stitch a story from cold corpses and spent bullets. The official investigation launches, and this little town's air turns thick with tension. People mutter over fences, sizing up neighbors with wary eyes. Someone pulled this off with scary precision. And the big question isn't just who, but why the hell would they? Sheriff Charles Reeder steps up to the press that day, his face tight, voice heavy but steady. This wasn't random, he says. This was planned. 8 people dead, all shot in the head, not one with a chance to fight back. That means the killer or killers knew the rodents inside out, where they crashed at night, how to slip around without a creak. But as the police dig in, their first suspicions zero in on the people who were closest to them. The rodents aren't as straightforward as they look. Christopher Sr.'s not just some guy with a rooster hobby. He's mixed up in Ohio's underground betting scene, where cash and bad blood spill out of those brutal fights. They find papers in his place. Debts, deals, names nobody around here knows. Did he owe some heavy hitter enough to get his whole family targeted? That idea hits a wall quick, though why take out Dana and the kids too? If it's about money, Christopher would have been enough. There's something bigger simmering under the surface. Then there's Dana. She's a rock for her kids, but her life's far from calm. Hannah, her oldest, just had that baby, and the dad's a guy named Jake. Someone Dana can't stand. She's been clashing with him over custody, and Hannah's buddies say Dana was ready to drag it to court. Jake wasn't around Pike County that night, but he's got a big family. Folks who aren't shy about throwing punches to get their way. Could this be Jake's people striking back, wiping out the rodents to lock down that baby? But it doesn't end there. The cops start looking outside the family, at people who crossed paths with them. There's Tony, a guy who teamed up with Christopher on the rooster gig. He's got a record for rough stuff, and a few months back, he and Christopher went at it over a missing batch of birds. He swears he was home that night, but nobody can back him up. Then there's this creepy little nugget. Tony swung by Dana's place days before, asking about that land the rodents own. Property worth a decent chunk they were thinking of selling. The more they dig, the clearer it gets. The rodents aren't just victims. They're caught in a messy tangle of money, land, and rocky ties. What really gets under your skin, though, is how ruthless this hit was. Someone walked into every house, pulled the trigger without blinking, even on a kid like Chris Jr., barely 16. This doesn't feel like your average grudge. It's more like a total wipeout, like they wanted the rodent name gone for good. Days drag on, and Sheriff Reeder's feeling the heat. People in Pike County want answers, but the trail's thin. They check the victims' phones. No weird calls or texts before it all went down. They scour the area. No tracks. No stray casings beyond the crime scenes. It's too slick, too polished, like this was cooked up way ahead of time. Then a new thought creeps in, making the whole team's blood run cold. What if it wasn't one person? What if a whole crew, maybe even another family, took on the rodents in some twisted showdown? As night swallows those cornfields again, that idea cracks open a door to something way darker than they'd bargained for. Days bleed into weeks after the Pike County slaughter, and the air stays heavy, like the ground itself won't let go of what happened. Sheriff Reeder and his crew are grinding nonstop, but every new lead feels like a step deeper into a maze with no exit. Folks around town whisper about curses, ghosts of the rodents haunting the fields. But for the people working this case, reality's a hell of a lot scarier than any spooky tale. Then comes a find that flips the script, shining a light into the shadows, while piling on more questions than it answers. They head back to the crime scenes, this time with a forensic squad from Columbus riding shotgun. Under the kitchen floor in Christopher Sr.'s place, they spot a tiny bloodstain. Not his, not any of the victims. Early DNA tests peg it as a man's, but it's not in the system. Someone was there that night, got hurt, and slipped out without leaving much behind. It's a bombshell that backs up the multiple killer angle. But who the hell are they? And why leave even that small a breadcrumb in a job this clean? Eyes turn fast to a new name, George Wagner, someone the rodents knew. George, folks call him Billy, is Jake's big brother, Jake being the dad of Hannah's newborn. The Wagners live a stone's throw from Pike County, known around here for keeping to themselves and occasionally stirring up trouble. George worked with Christopher Sr. on those rooster fights, but things went south when Christopher thought George was pocketing cash from the bets. On top of that, the Wagners weren't happy Hannah kept the baby. They wanted custody, and Dana shut them down hard. Is George the mastermind, or just one piece of a nastier picture. The cops dive into the underbelly of the area. Pike County might be small, but it's not all sunshine and quiet. Drugs and illegal betting snake through these back roads, and even if the rodents weren't in deep, they might have brushed up against something bad. A tipster who won't give their name says Christopher butted heads with a local drug runner over a big payout. Details are fuzzy, though. It's enough to make you wonder. Was this a message from the criminal world, or a smokescreen for something more personal? They haul George in for a chat, but he's a vault. Says he was home with family that night, and his mom, Angela Wagner, vouches for him. But when they crack his phone, there's a deleted text from the night before. It'll all be over soon. Sent from a burner, no trace. It's not enough to cuff him, but it's got everyone's hair standing on end. George isn't some dummy. He knows how to cover his tracks. But the way he looks leaving that room screams he's hiding something big. Meanwhile, the rodents who made it through start talking. James, a cousin, tells the cops Dana was stressing over the family land. A chunk worth real money they were set to sell to clear some debts. James has a hunch the Wagners wanted it, and when they couldn't buy it cheap, they went for blood instead. So what's driving this? Cash? Custody? Or some old beef nobody's caught wind of? When the police roll out from George's place, they're carrying a gut punch of a feeling. This isn't just family drama. It's a full-on war between people who'll stop at nothing. Pike County's not the same anymore. It's a ghost town with a pulse, where truth and lies twist together in the fields. Sheriff Reeder's got the weight of the world on him. The town's screaming for justice, the rodents want closure, and those 8 dead faces won't leave his mind. Months stretch on, and just when it feels like they're chasing shadows, a game-changer lands, tying the suspects together and cranking the heat up to 11. They circle back to the Wagners, this time with the FBI in tow. A sweep of George and Angela's place turns up gold. A busted-up handgun stashed in an old toolbox in the garage. Ballistics peg it as a match for the 9mm rounds at the scene. Nothing rare, but the gun's got unique scratches. George says it's his dad's old hunting piece, but that's a stretch nobody's buying. Then there's this. Angela was seen cruising near the rodent homes days before, even though she lives 30 miles out. That's no coincidence. They start piecing together how the Wagners and rodents connect. It's not just casual, they've got history. Angela and Dana used to be tight, but it fell apart when Dana wouldn't sell the family land on the cheap. Then there's Jake, George's little brother, begging Hannah to let his family take the baby. Dana wasn't having it. One of Hannah's friends says Angela called Dana up, hissing, "You'll regret keeping that kid." That line hits different now, like a warning shot that went live. The investigation fans out beyond the rodents. Turns out the Wagners aren't just after land and custody. They're dabbling in a small-time drug hustle around here. A nameless source says George ran with a dealer named Eddie, who dealt with Christopher Sr. when Christopher bailed on Eddie to shield his family. Eddie swore he'd pay. Did the Wagners link up with Eddie to take out the rodents, settling a score and grabbing what they wanted? It's a theory that makes your skin crawl, but they're still short the smoking gun. They sit Angela down. She's cool as ice, brushing off every accusation. But when they bring up the pistol, she flinches. Claims her family's clean, just looking out for Jake's kid. But when they push about that night, she shuts down, hands shaking. They can't lock her up yet, but they're close, so close they can taste it. Then Jake flips the script, agreeing to talk. He spills that the family's been plotting for months, not just for the baby, but to make sure no rodents left standing to fight back. The real why starts coming into focus. The Wagners want custody to cash in on Hannah's welfare checks and the rodent land to grow their shady business. Dana and Christopher say no, so they go all in. Jake says George and Angela ran the show, but he clams up on who shot. Maybe too scared to say. The pressure's boiling over now. This isn't some spur-of-the-moment killing. It's a calculated massacre by people ready to burn a whole family down to get ahead. Time drags on in Pike County, but the hurt doesn't fade. The investigation stretches past 2 years, and every day that ticks by, the rodents left behind feel hope slipping through their fingers. Then, in November 2018, Sheriff Reeder gets the break he's been chasing. It's not just the gun, not just Jake's word. They've got DNA off a pair of gloves found near a mine a few miles from the scene. That DNA's George Wagner's, and suddenly, it all clicks. They round up the whole Wagner clan, George, Angela, Jake, and their dad, Billy. Jake's story cracks it wide open. He says that night, April 21st, 2016, they all planned it out. George and Billy handled the dirty work, Angela cooked up alibis, and Jake played lookout. They rolled up to each Roden home, using silencers to drop everyone in their sleep. Hannah's baby got a pass because Angela wanted to raise it. A sick twist in the chaos. They torched the gloves and casings after, but George fumbled, dropping a pair that sealed their fate. The trial kicks off in 2019, and the nation's glued to Pike County. The Wagners plead not guilty, but the evidence buries them. The gun's a match, the glove DNA's ironclad, and Jake's tale paints a nightmare of greed and cruelty. George and Billy get death row, Angela's locked up for life as an accomplice, and Jake catches a lighter sentence for flipping. Justice lands, but it's a hollow win. It can't undo the wreckage. The Rodens, Dana, Christopher, Hannah, Frankie, all of them, aren't just names on a victim list. They're a symbol of a family torn apart by betrayal, where greed and hate swallowed everything whole. Hannah's little girl, now with her grandma, is the only flicker left from that fire. But every time they look at her, they see what's gone. 8 lives, erased over dirt and a warped power play. Pike County's marked forever now. People still talk about it. A cautionary tale of what's lurking behind those quiet houses. The Wagners weren't outsiders. They were family, friends, folks who broke bread with the Rodens. That's what sticks with you. The real monster might be the one you'd never suspect. If you ever get that gut feeling, that nagging itch you can't shake, don't brush it off. Out in Pike County, the Rodens never heard the boots in the dark, and it cost them everything.